Hi, this is Harris Maths. Did you know that the use of letters from the end of the alphabet to represent unknowns was first introduced by French philosopher and mathematician René Descartes? And today we shall be using letters to represent unknowns. And we'll start with the equation of a straight line. Y is equal to mx add c, where we know that m is the gradient. It's the gradient. C is the y-intercept, and x and y are just coordinates. Now, the best way to go about this is to have a look at some examples. If we're asked to write down the gradients and y-intercepts of the following lines, let's see what we have. Y is equal to 2x minus 1. We know the gradient is the coefficient of x. In this case it's 2, so m is equal to 2. The y-intercept is c, and c is equal to -1. So on the graph we know this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. We know our gradient is 2. That's the slope of the line. And the y-intercept is -1. So it's cutting. Let's call this -1. And it's a positive gradient, so this is a illustration of what the graph would look like. Let me just draw this a bit higher. Our graph would look, this is -1, x, y, oops, let's call that. So this is the point -1, which is the y-intercept, where the graph or the line cuts the y-axis. Let's look at a few other examples. We have y is equal to -3x add 4. The coefficient of x, which is our gradient, m, is equal to -3. And our c, our y-intercept, is equal to 4. Now this graph will be slightly different. Instead of rising, it's actually going in the opposite direction. So if we have this as 4, we have a line cutting across something like that. Y-intercept being 4, gradient -3. Our next example is y is equal to x over 5 minus 2 over 5. Here we can rewrite this as 1/5 of x minus 2 over 5. We know our gradient, m, is the coefficient of x. M is equal to 1 over 5, and c, our y-intercept, is equal to -2 over 5. What about if we are asked to write down the equations given the gradient? So we have a gradient m is equal to 4, and the y-intercept is minus 10. We will start with y. Mx, we know m is 4, so that's the coefficient of x. And we add our y-intercept to this, which is minus 10. Another one would be gradient of minus 1 and y-intercept of 5. M equal to minus 1 and c to equal to 5. This would be written, we can just write this down, y is equal to minus x, because the coefficient of x now is just minus 1, and add 5. Remember, if you're not too sure why I have minus x, it would be, you could write this as minus 1 times x, add 5. Minus 1 times x is minus x. And an interesting one here is that, what about if we have a gradient of 0? So m is equal to 0 and the y-intercept is 3. C is equal to 3. So we have y is equal to, if our coefficient of x is 0, then 0 times x will give us 0. So we'll have 0, add 3. So our line, the equation of the line is y is equal to 3. If you were to do a sketch of this, this is the y-axis, and this is 3, we'll have the line going across like that, where the gradient is 0. We could do a bit more. If we look at all the different lines that we actually drew just now, wrote the equation for, the first was y is equal to 4x